As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And what's up, Obscurians? It's time for another episode of Obscurity Now, the show that takes a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media that we decide if it should be remembered for all of human history or tossed into the black void of obscurity, never to be heard from again. My name is Steve. I'm one of the hosts, and with me is a man who refers to the room underneath his stairs as a glory hole. It's
Yahel. Yeah, unfortunate name that they gave this understairs room.
I was like, what? Did I just hear what I thought I heard? And then they said it a few other times, and I was like, wow. You learn something new about the Brits every day.
Yeah, I guess for those that don't know, I guess I don't know. I'm assuming that they don't do it anymore, but at least as of 1992, the Brits were calling understairs rooms, closets, glory holes.
Well, hey, all right. Conversely, perhaps us perverted Americans, we took that very innocent title, and then it got prescribed to something that's much more sexual than just a room under the stairs. You think that's possible?
Oh, I thought you were going to say something that's just much more interesting.
Wait. Are you saying what our version of glory hole is way more interesting than their version? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. Look, I don't want to partake in either, but I like my closets above the stairs, Steve, like a patriot.
What does that even mean? All right. Let's clear this up here. All right, we're watching the very British mockumentary, or I mean, I guess I should have done like last time and pretended that I thought it was real. But no, it's called a Ghost Watch, and it's a mockumentary about an investigation into ghosts, basically. In your research, did you come across the fact that the Blair Witch guys saw this, apparently, and that's sort of...
Yeah, but then later the Blair Witch guys said that they hadn't seen it until after the Blair Witch came out. I think they didn't want to be accused of copying it.
Well, I mean, they ripped off Cannibal Holocaust too. I mean, it's okay to be inspired by stuff. I mean, and no one... I mean, I had never even heard of this up until a few weeks ago. How about yourself?
So I thought I hadn't heard of it either until I started watching it, and I am pretty sure I at least started watching this like maybe in the mid 2010s.
Oh, really? That's interesting. So, how far did you get through it?
I don't know, but I mean, I definitely remembered the host. I remember the kids, and a lot of I would say I remembered at least like the first 20-30 minutes felt familiar for sure. Well, I'll get into why I think I stopped watching it later, but but yeah, I'm pretty sure I had at least watched bits of this a good decent amount.
Oh, well, yep. I had, as I said, never heard of it until I ran across that TikTok in between all of the heated political videos that TikTok thinks I want to watch. They had a little nugget. This little nugget popped up. But
political lives are the best, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't know. When I first started watching TikTok, I'm like, this is like a fun little time waster. And then now I'm just bombarded with like nothing but politics these days. It's like they're just trying to piss me off or something. I don't know. But are you ready to dive a little bit further into Ghost Watch?
Yeah. Let's get into it.
All right.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
All right, before we mention anything, we should probably mention that you, yes, you, dear listener / viewer, can go watch Ghost Watch right off of the Internet Archive, which is that's where we got our copies, right?
Well, actually, I watched it on Amazon Prime.
It was on there.
Um, well, it was on there for rent for $2,
Hmm.
and the quality was just a lot nicer.
Oh, I
Uh,
don't know. I kind of enjoyed the shitty quality of my, and it wasn't even that bad. There was a few times when, for some reason, I guess it had something to do with like the broadcast or something. The everything looked really wavy, but like it corrected after a while.
that's the Poltergeist, Steve.
Oh, is that what that was? Oh, thanks for clearing that up for me.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, it's only $2 if you, and I just also rented it on there for the convenience
hmm.
too. Sometimes, like I know you can cast from archive.org
Hmm.
video to a TV or whatever, but have found it to be a little so-so. So I just got it on Prime. I believe it's also available for rent on YouTube,
Hmm.
and I don't remember the date, but it's supposed to be popping up on Tubi soon.
Ah, well, very nice. There you go. You have all sorts of options to watch Ghost Watch. And speaking of Ghost Watch, it premiered October 31st, 1992. And I'll tell you, I watched this before I went and did my research and created the format. And as I was watching it, I was like, wow, this is so 80s looking. So I was kind of surprised to see that it premiered in 1992. Is that
I mean, 92 is still pretty close to the
sure?
80s, you know.
Sure,
So you still have a
absolutely.
little bit of holdover of fashion and cars and that kind of thing. But I think too, like when I've watched like other media from that era,
Hmm.
that's like British media, like the I don't know what it is, if it's the white balance that the way that they do it or something, or maybe because they have that PAL format, but it always looks a little different, the
Sure.
video.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it kind of makes it look a little older
Like, I mean,
in my view.
early versions of Red Dwarf, which I'm mentioning for a reason, yeah, looks very similar to.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say use Red Dwarf as an example too,
All right, and of course Doctor Who as well around this time. Here's a synopsis for Ghost Watch.
and Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, of course.
Garth Marenghi. It's got a look all on its own. But yeah, and if you look at some of these pictures in the Obscuritron, total Garth Marenghi vibes coming up. Yeah, just keep an eye out. So here's a synopsis for those who have no idea what Ghost Watch is about. The BBC gives over a whole evening to an investigation into the supernatural. Four respected presenters and a camera crew attempt to discover the truth behind the most haunted house in Britain. Expecting a light-hearted scare or two and probably uncovering of a hoax, they think they are in control of the situation. They think they are safe. The viewers settle down and decide to watch for a laugh. 90 minutes later, the BBC and the country was changed, and the consequences are still felt today. Way too long. I thought about shortening it, but I'm like, why not? We'll just go for the whole thing. Do you think that's an accurate description of Ghost
Yeah,
Watch?
it's a pretty accurate description,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you read up on what happened afterwards,
Sure.
some of the country's
Yeah,
reaction,
yeah.
and
Let's save that till after the credits here. So this was directed by Leslie Manning, and she worked on some other stuff. I mean, I'd never heard of it. A couple of movies. One is called POV, another one is called Lila, and another one is
POV. Is that porn?
yeah, right. No, like it seems like most of her stuff is sort of I don't know, almost social justice, almost like sort of pseudo documentaries or
Like a lot of
yeah,
documentaries. Yeah, I'm looking at some of her
docudramas.
shorts
Yeah,
and stuff. Yeah.
exactly. And like, I'm just gonna tell you right now, unless you're like real deep into like British TV and film, you're not gonna know any of this stuff. Because I mean, I certainly didn't. There was only one guy who I recognized in this whole thing, and I'm sure Yahel will tell you all about him in the cast. But this was written by a guy by the name of Stephen Volk, and he wrote a few other films. One is called Octane, another is called Afterlife, and The Awakening. And that pretty much does it for behind the camera. Why don't you tell us some of the people in front of the camera?
Sure. I'm not going to go too deep into the other things that these people have done, just because a lot of it is, British stuff, and well, we're patriots here, and
What is with that?
no,
what's
I
what's
don't
been going on during your time off of work, Yahel?
know. Hold on, let me get my Punisher stuff.
What are these meetings
But
you
no,
say
but
you keep going to every week?
no, but it's just stuff that our audience is not going to be familiar
Sure.
with. But first, we have Michael Parkinson, who is here as himself. He actually just died
Of
2 months
Parkinson's
ago. August.
disease?
Well, if he was still alive, he would have died of embarrassment from that joke. But
Someone had to make it.
I'm sure he's heard it many times.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, he just died August 16th of this year. He actually was a TV presenter, and he was known for like having talk shows. I wouldn't say he's done, from what I could, like see, not necessarily like documentaries, but kind of like, those TV shows that like they're kind of newsy, but kind of entertainment-ish, kind of something like that, but
Like sightings.
a little bit. But a little bit, no, but like a little bit more on the serious side,
Okay.
like if Inside Edition had no tabloid
Oh,
stuff,
I gotcha. Yeah, I gotcha.
you know. But anyways, so yeah, so he was a real presenter at the time, and he's playing himself here. He has acted in a few things as himself, usually as well. So he plays the host of Ghostwatch. Then we've got Sarah Green, who she plays the reporter that's at the house. She was only in like 14 things total, and there's a lot of time between her stuff. And again, nothing that we here in the States, the country that we took from these people,
The state of
uh,
decline. Am I right?
yeah,
Politics.
would know about. Then we've got Mike Smith. He's the phone-in presenter. He's basically the guy answering, or he's not answering the phones, but he's like reporting on the phone call, because this is almost set up like a telethon
Yeah.
in a weird
Like
way.
a PBS
People don't call in
style
to donate money, but
telethon, yeah.
people can just call in for whatever they want.
No,
whether
they
they want to
call
tell
in
their own
to
stories, give their own
to
feedback.
share their ghost stories with the
Yeah. But people end up calling in for all kinds of things. Like people end up calling in just to give backstory. Oh yeah, I know about that house and blah blah
right,
blah.
right. It's a
Anyways,
literary device really, or a plot device. That's what it is.
well, he was only has 3 credits on IMDb. One is live from the Pebble Mill in 1983. So then 9 years later, he gets Ghostwatch, and then 5 years later, maybe ironically, he is a TV presenter in The Man Who Knew Too Little.
How about that?
So yeah. Anyways, then we've got Craig Charles. He plays like the interviewer. He's also at the location. He never goes in the house, but I recognized him right away from Red Dwarf.
Right. Which then, and again, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. Like, once you saw him, I mean, because Red Dwarf started in
Yeah.
1988, immediately you should be like, well, this is clearly not real. The man's an actor.
Yeah, exactly.
But
What was his name? Lister?
yes, in Red Dwarf. Yeah. But here he just plays himself, and he's obviously here to be the comedic relief. Because if you watch this, it's you will see that it's very dry and British.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, Red Dwarf, he it started like in 88. He was in it since the beginning. It was super popular. So I don't know how people were calling in thinking that this was, because I'm sure we'll get to it later, but apparently a lot of viewers thought like this was real. And
Right.
I don't know, I guess if you like tuned into it, because he's not in it a lot, so I guess if you tune into it, like 20 minutes into it, because when you don't see him for like an hour, you might not pick
And
up.
that is
I don't know.
basically exactly what happened according to IMDb. Is that because I mean, even at the very beginning of let's call it what it is. This is a TV movie or TV mockumentary. Even at the beginning, they have like a title card. It says written by that Volk guy. And yeah, there was never their intent to mislead or make people think that it was real. It's just people tuned in late and they thought it was real. And
Yeah, people are just dumb.
yes,
Basically.
yes.
I do want to mention though something about Craig Charles. He was on this soap opera called Coronation Street. Um, how many episodes do you think he was in the soap opera? Just give me a guess. I'll give you. He was on it for 10 years.
Whoa, Jesus, that's got to be at least like 200 episodes.
Ooh, just pretty close, Steve. 924.
Oh wow.
Oh, I'm not done, Steve. Knowing that, how many episodes do you think the soap opera has?
Oh man. God damn it. All right, how many? All right, it's got to be like close to I don't know 3,000.
10,700.
Is it still going on today?
It's still going
Oh
on
wow!
today.
See that is true, like British traditionalism right there. They pick something and they stick with it.
Well, it is the longest running soap opera of all time. Apparently, it started in 1960. The episodes are only 30 minutes long, which kind of explains, I think, why there's so many episodes, or at least helps to. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of
That is
interesting.
interesting.
For anyone wondering what it's about, Coronation Street focuses on the everyday lives of working class people in Manchester, England. I did watch the little like preview clip they have on IMDb, and I don't know, these don't seem like the everyday lives of working class people. This is very dramatic.
Right.
But anyways, moving on, we've got Gillian Bevan, who plays Dr. Lynn Pascoe. I don't think they ever say what her doctorate is in. Maybe bullshit. I'm not really sure.
No,
But,
paranormal. She's a parapsychologist, I think, is what they said.
Oh, is that a real
It
PhD?
is now, buddy. I don't know.
Maybe over there.
Yeah.
Anyways, she's been in a bunch of stuff, still acting, but again, it's all pretty much British stuff. So we're going to not discuss it.
Right.
Like
if
the
you're not involved,
American elitist that
if
we
you're not
are.
involved with Garth Marenghi, we're just not interested. Like
Yeah. Red Dwarf.
Right?
Dwarf.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
If she was a real actress, she would have been in Coronation Street.
100%.
I assume everybody over there has had a go
Sure.
at Coronation
Sure.
Street.
Sure.
Anyways, then we've got Brid, such a British name, Brid, Brid Brennan. She plays Pamela Early. She's like the mom of the two little girls in it. She's also still acting. It's mostly, again, British stuff. I think I saw she was in a couple episodes of Peaky Blinders, but everything else was stuff that I'd never heard of.
Smashing.
Yeah. I'm not going to name too many other people here. I do want to name the one American. We've got Colin Stinton, who plays Dr. Emilio Silvestri.
I love that. And he was the skeptic. I'm like, why did they make him American? But I loved it either way.
Well, I guess they were trying to, make it seem like a real. Yeah, he's like live from New York, basically, which would have been like, I don't know, like 5 in the morning for him or 4 in the morning
and
or
I
something.
just wonder if like the British public were just like, oi, typical Americans always talking down our ghosties or something. Like, they don't believe in shit.
Ghosties.
Yeah. They don't believe in shit
Yeah,
over
even-
there in America.
They put holes in their glory holes.
Yeah, they actually have a hole in a wall, and a guy puts his dingle dang in there, and someone comes along and sucks it. That's what they call a glory hole over in the States.
I think they call it a mouth wank.
Yes. All right. Fantastic.
Anyways, this guy, Colin Stinton, again, he plays Dr. I almost said Mark Sylvester.
Yes.
Yeah, he plays the canonical brother of Cyberforce creator Mark Sylvester.
He's
Anyways.
constantly telling Mark, it's like, Mark, the Cyberforce could never actually exist. I mean, come on. Robotics just has not advanced that far. Well, you get the idea.
Well, it's funny you say that because he's been in a lot of stuff, real movies, American
Yeah.
movies.
Urgh.
Um, but like he was actually no. In all seriousness, though, like been in a lot of stuff. He was Dr. Dave in Tomorrow Never Dies. He was Neil Daniels in The Bourne Ultimatum. He was in Rush. He was in Closer. He was in Wonder Woman
Oh, poor
1984. He's in The
bastard.
Queen's Gambit. He's yeah. He is in Absentia if you're into that. But yeah, he's got like a ton of stuff on his credits. He's in Captain America, the First Avenger. He's just in everything.
Nice.
Um, anyways, that's kind of the main cast that I felt was worth going through. I don't know. I mean, there are the two kids. I guess we could discuss. Susan is played by Michelle Wesson, excuse me, who's been in like six things altogether. She stopped in 1998. Then we've got Charisse Wesson. So apparently they are real sisters. Who plays Kim, which I believe was the younger of the
Yes.
two. And this is all she did. She said, "This is enough. I've peaked."
Right. Yeah.
You know, this whole thing reminded me of I know I'm pretty sure I've brought this up before, and I can't remember. I don't think you've watched it, but this reminded me a lot of the McPherson tape. Did you ever
Oh
watch
yeah,
that?
I don't think so. That's one with aliens or something, right?
Yeah, yeah. Where basically it's like a found footage TV movie from 1989. That one, like, it is. From what I remember, I mean, I watched it a while ago. And I'm sure I was drunk while I watched it, but I do remember it being like real slow and boring. And then the last 15 minutes when it starts to pick up, it's real kind of
I
creepy.
don't know. That
And
sounds
it's worth a
vaguely
watch.
familiar to me. But yeah, we'll have to put it on the list.
Yeah, we got to watch that one. It's only an hour and 6 minutes. So, um, but anyways, shall we dive into Ghost Watch?
For sure. All right, yeah, let's go right on in. All right, so we get after the opening like title card, which shows that this is not a real like broadcast or anything like that. We get opening surveillance footage, basically of the two sisters in bed, and basically they start freaking out because there's I can't remember if there's noise or there's some sort of paranormal activity going on, and the and I thought like right off the bat I thought it was pretty good. Like the sisters, I mean their performance was good, but the weird thing that was going on is that they explained it later. Like the camera started like zooming in like on the girls. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about? I'm like, that's not how surveillance footage is supposed to work. It's just supposed to be like a static shock, but or static
Yeah.
shots. But later on in the movie, let's just call it what it is. They explain that they, I guess, have the ability to control the cameras that are inside the house. They use some panning and some zooming and stuff like that. But yeah, like what did you think when you watched the surveillance footage? I definitely got Paranormal Activity vibes.
Yeah, yeah. I was I when I saw that too, I was thinking like, oh, I wonder if this is where they got, their idea for that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I found the panning to be weird too. Distracting. Like it immediately took
Yeah.
me out of the immersion that they were going
Hmm.
for. So I too thought that that was a weird mistake. The two actresses that play the sisters, they do pretty good as far as their performance goes, especially for kid actors. They're fairly believable, but yeah, I was already like, when it panned, I'm like, oh no. But then when we go to the studio, I was shocked at the quality of
Yes. Oh,
the studio
I mean, that's
set.
the one thing that I could say about this movie is that everyone commits. The BBC clearly, really threw some money into this thing. Um, so, and also, well, as we move on, it definitely started reminding me of another sort of mockumentary that we watched last year. Do you remember?
Yeah, the WUNF or
Yep,
whatever,
WNUF
Halloween.
Halloween tape. Oh yeah, one he. I mean,
Yep.
that guy must have seen this for sure. And how?
Dude, you won't believe this. Somebody mentioned that. I was commenting. This is going to shock you, Steve. It was a Star Trek post on Instagram. I know, shocking. And about something I can't even remember what. It was some weird, obscure, like Star Trek related.
Mhm.
I don't know, infomercial that they did. It's something weird. Anyways, and somebody commented like, "Oh God, this is like the
NUF.
WNUF Halloween special." I was like, "Jesus Christ, I can't believe it in the wild." You know,
Nice. See, our message is getting out there. You hell, it's getting out there.
I think they had seen it on the web.
No. Our message is getting out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, let's see. Then they actually play like a sort of cheesy like opening montage with a very 80s sounding music that I actually quite enjoyed. Um, well, what did you think about that?
About the music.
Yeah, just the opening, the cheesy opening.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, it definitely it's fine. It's
Of the time. It's
1992.
of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was fine.
So and then I guess they talk for a little bit. We meet our presenter, Mr. Parkinson, and Lynn, who was supposed to be like the specialist when it comes to the paranormal, I suppose. And then they cut to Craig Charles from Red Dwarf, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I actually knew someone or knew of someone who was actually in this. But I was like, all right, maybe, because I don't know about you, but I was kind of dreading watching this. I thought it was going to kind of be boring. But when I saw him, I'm like, hey, maybe this has a chance.
Yeah, I too was dreading watching this when I saw. Well, I when I saw it was 90 minutes, I was like,
Yeah, same
"Oh,
here.
this is hard to like do." If it was like an hour, I wouldn't have dreaded it. But yeah, but like you, yeah, when I saw him, I'm like, "Oh, okay, maybe this will be fun, real tongue in cheek kind of thing." But no, it's played as
Straight.
serious as possible.
And basically, we just, in order to speed things up, we get introduced to what I think is just a massive cast that we really don't need these many people. Like, all right, so we've got the two hosts in the main studio, Mr. Parkinson, I can't remember his first name, the Lynn lady. We've got Craig Charles, who is like the man on the street interviewer, basically. We've got the lady who's inside the house, Sarah. I can't
Sarah
remember her last name. And then the other guy who you
Smith, I
mentioned,
think,
Sarah.
because she's like the sister of the phone-in
Oh, no,
guy.
they're husband and wife, I thought.
Oh, I mean, maybe they allow brothers and sisters to marry there. I don't know. I don't know their ways, Steve. Their glory
We
holes are
don't call
different.
it
Who's to say their
incest. We
marriage
just
is?
call it same.
We, we call it a brotherly wonk.
That's disgusting. But I really need to check our analytics to see if we actually have any UK
Yes,
listeners.
yes. You may need to bleep a lot of things.
I'm not doing that. But if you are a British person who listens to us, thank you. And it's we're all just having a laugh, right? Just having a laugh.
Yeah. Hey, we trained with Phil he was from England, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right, man.
But unlike the rest of us Americans, he couldn't go over straight on an arm drag.
It's true. It's funny because it's true. All right. Well, that was
Can you imagine if Phil is listening to this?
I mean, I'd be happy if he was, but
I stayed in touch with him for several years. He got into filmmaking,
oh yeah, I
like
think I remember
legit
you told me
documentaries
about
and
that.
stuff. We should try to track him down.
Sure. Maybe we can review some of his
He's,
stuff.
he's making Ghostwatch 2 as we speak.
Oh man, that'd be pretty cool for him. But anyway, so yeah, as we said, Sarah, the inside the house host, and the phone in guy host, they're husband and wife, and yeah, it's just I guess after going from WNUF, which is obviously a very sort of condensed kind of low budget thing, to this, it just there was just too many reporters. Like they could have combined a lot of the roles, but hey, maybe that's how the BBC like does their sort of investigative reports. They have to have like 6 reporters, so maybe it just added to the authenticity. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I think they were trying so hard to make it seem authentic, and one way to do that is to like be very mundane and play everything very straight. And
Sure.
I think they may have overdone it by, like you mentioned, introducing such a large cast of characters, so many reporters, and this and that. But
Yeah. At the same time, though, I think maybe they have so many different people as so they could keep cutting back and forth between them so it doesn't become boring, which I mean, unfortunately at one point they kind of fail at that. But anyway, we'll let's move on and we'll see how it goes. So let's see. One of those wipes. Okay, Michael, the host, talks to she talks to Lynn. At one point, Craig Charles talks to some other random guy named Alan Demiscu or whatever, who was another like paranormal expert who was also out on the street. He says they're going to be investigating the spontaneous hauntings, and he sort of goes into an explanation about what exactly that is. Then they talk about all their equipment. They have an infrared camera, which barely even gets used. Like you see it at the beginning, and they sort of show how it works, and then you don't see it again until basically the very end.
The very end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it would have even in '92 been a bit of a novelty
Sure.
to use. So I mean, I guess maybe that's why they didn't use it much. But yeah, kind of weird. Because then the whole time you know that it's not over until they use the infrared camera, and they don't do it till the very end. So
Right. Yeah, so then Sarah enters the house, and basically she just sort of goes from room to room so we can see what the inside of the house looks like. We meet the sisters, we meet the mom. There's some old school graphics, and then we sort of cut back, and they're like having a good time in the house. Sarah's bobbing for apples, and then
in the smallest bucket.
Yeah, right.
And they're like both trying to go in there, but it's this bucket can barely even fit like one person's head.
Yeah,
let alone two.
Yeah, they're supposed to be having fun or whatever. It's the calm before the storm.
Yeah. By the way, have you ever gone bobbing for apples, like at a glory hole or something? British glory hole. British glory hole. Just to be clear.
Thank you for clearing that up. I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
What about a regular glory hole, an American one?
I'd never bobbed for anything around an American glory hole.
I went bobbing for apples at a church lock-in once, and
do you remember when the Undertaker started calling himself the American Glory Hole?
He should.
That was a weird gimmick change. Really weird.
That was weird. But bobbing for apples, not fun. It's not fun.
Yeah, it looks stupid. But well, whatever. So Sarah basically interviews the kids. Oh wait, but before that, they hear some like knocking on the door. Sarah goes and investigates, and just like in this is sort of a typical trope from any sort of cheesy 80s or 90s horror film. She opens the door, and it's a guy with a rubber mask. Oh, it's that wacky Craig Charles up to his old tricks again. He tried to scare Sarah. He said that he and her husband had like a bet to see if he could get her to say a 4-letter word on the air. But she doesn't because it's the BBC in the 90s, I guess.
Me and your husband had a bet to get you fired.
Yeah, right. So yeah, Sarah interviews the kids. I know, like they're inside their room. They spend a lot of time in the little girl's room. So get comfortable there. I noticed that one of the little girls had Care Bear like pillowcases and like blankets or whatever. I don't know, very of the time, I suppose.
Yeah.
And they do another sort of classic trope, of course, like I think it's Kimmy, the younger one. She drew like creepy pictures of the ghost, who we find out later is called Mr. Pipes. Did you even know that the ghost is called Mr. Pipes?
Yeah, because they keep referring to him as Pipes
yeah.
throughout it. That was my clue when they keep calling him Pipes. But he sounded like later on when they describe him, like callers describe him and stuff, they describe Skeletor is what they actually describe. So that was a little weird.
I was always a big fan. Skeletor can come haunt my room, no problem.
Wow. That sounded...
Later, we're going to go to a British glory hole.
Oh, he can come haunt your British glory hole. Okay.
Yes. And then Mom shows a different notebook of even creepier drawings. They try to say that Susie was the older one is the one who drew them, but she's like, I have no idea where those came from. And basically, more calls come in that discuss. They say that in the initial footage that they showed at the beginning, there's a dark figure in it. And
The
then
callers are
Michael,
saying that they saw a figure in the curtains or something.
and then they actually show it like in the studio, and Michael, the host, he analyzes it, and then basically they debunk it, which I thought it was cool because it adds a layer of authenticity, and also, of course, very Britishness to where they're just like, clearly there's no ghost here. It's just the reflections of some whatever. And
It's just a reflection of some crumpets that we left stacked in the shape of a man. As we do.
It's just a bunch of marmalade, it is. Oh, man. They hate us over there now.
Oh, that's just our Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe's not
He's
British.
Australian.
He's
Now they
Australian.
really hate us. Oh, boy.
Oh, no.
So, Mom tells us that she got stuck in the glory hole underneath the stairs. This is when she first calls it that. And I was listening to this pretty low volume, like I said, in the middle of the night. And I was just like, did she say what I thought I heard? Like, glory hole? That's what they've been calling it this whole time?
Well, Steve, I watched a good shot, like half of this while I was on the treadmill and running. And like, that's when I first heard her calling it. I just like start laughing while I'm running like a maniac. And I'm like running like and laughing like a crazy person.
Yeah, you're like glory hole. And like the guy next to you is like, what the fuck?
I'm like, oh, sorry, it's a Russell Crowe thing I'm listening to.
So yeah, basically, Mom, she shows us some newspaper clippings of I guess when they got interviewed by the papers about their because they've already, I guess, tried to go public about their haunting going on in their house. And of course, the papers made them out to be a laughing stock. So this is kind of like the reason of why they allowed the cameras into their house, because they're sick of like being made fun of, and they want to show everyone that that it's real, that they're actually being haunted. And then they let's see. Oh, and did you notice the picture of the ghost in his sheet in the studio?
Yes,
God.
I was going to bring that up. So the way the studio is set up, for those that haven't watched it, you've got Parkinson's, our host, on one side sitting in a chair. Then next to him is the doctor, the parapsychological doctor or whatever, and she believes in all the paranormal stuff. And behind them is like a fireplace, and above the mantle of the fireplace is a framed like picture of a ghost, but the ghost is just like a white sheet ghost.
It's your classic white sheet ghost, and I'm just like, that's the little wink behind the camera right there. If you're like tuning in and the people are seriously discussing the paranormal and you see a picture of a white sheeted ghost, that means that it's not real. I mean, of course,
right.
They're discussing ghosts anyway, so of course they're not real. But I mean, if you're on the fence, seeing a picture of a white sheeted ghost is a pretty big red flag, or white flag.
And also, if you called into the number, they when people called into that number, the first thing that they got was a message that told them that this is not real.
Right.
Then they were still allowed to tell their stories or whatever, even though this wasn't live. But yeah, so I'm not exactly sure. Actually, did you see? I know we're kind of going on a side here, that Parkinson's own mother was a caller, an irate and frightened caller.
Wait, like in canon, or his mom?
No. In real life, Michael Parkinson's elderly mother, like, she was watching, and I guess he didn't tell her this is fake.
I didn't see that. Oh, that's good.
Or maybe he thought she'd be able to figure it out. So she was one of the people that called into the BBC that was irate and scared and all this stuff.
I did see that the director ended up being one of the callers, because the actress who they had hired to call in wasn't any good. So she's just like, stand aside, I'll handle this. And she became one of the callers that way. Yeah, so they listened to a reel to reel of, I guess that's Susie talking in this sort of demonic sounding voice. They also look at other sort of bits of evidence. I'm not certain if it's supposed to be from this case or other cases, but basically it's like a box of dishes that apparently were hurled around by ghosts.
And broken. And I love that they say, yeah, we sent these broken teacups to the army to, so that the army ran tests. I'm like, damn, the British army has nothing going on, man. They have nothing to do.
Right. Well, that and of course, like you can't get any better, scientific analyzation in the UK without the army. Like they are the top.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So then they have the chat with Dr. Silvestri, head of the Skeptics Society, and I love it. He's just the typical like smug, like basically. If you looked into your mind and it's like, what does an atheist look like and sound like? Bam, it's Dr. Silvestri here, and and his suit. How would you describe that suit?
That Dr. Sylvester, it's weird. It reminded me of like a Vince McMahon suit.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe it's because this Mark Sylvester guy, he looks like he might be like a big dude, like a big bodybuilder type dude. But yeah, it was gangster-ish.
Yeah,
I don't know. It was weird.
kind of Scarface-ish. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Because that's how they imagine all Americans dress, I assume.
True.
So now we are back into the house with Sarah. She's again, everything's still fun and games inside the house. She's actually literally playing board games with the girls. Then she tells us about her own little weird dream and sort of ghost encounter or something. And then the host, Sarah, puts the youngest girl, Sarah, to bed and like kisses her good night. Was that a little weird for you?
Yeah, that was a little weird, but maybe that's common over there. I don't know.
To have
Have strangers just
TV
kiss
hosts,
you. TV hosts.
come in, tuck your kids away. And at this point, is this when they had taken the mom like out of the house to do like a personal interview or something? Did that happen yet?
I guess.
Like I just thought that was weird.
Yeah, I
because
think so. I think so.
they took her out and she stayed gone for a while. And I just thought that was weird. I don't know if I don't really understand the point of that, but anyway, they interview. Oh, they're all right. So we're back into the studio, and they do a video interview with a guy, and they blur his face out. And I was like, that's so classic, sort of I don't know, '90s. I don't know, sightings or whatever. I don't know. His story wasn't very interesting though, but I just like the fact that they blurred his face.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess again trying to add to the realism of it. There's a few times that they do that where people want to remain anonymous or whatever.
Right. Totally believable, for sure. So now we're back with Craig Charles. He interviews a neighbor. They say a lot of like bad stuff happened in the area, and they specifically go to this playground where they said they, I don't know, kids found like a dead dog, and like, did I hear like fetuses or something laying around? So they're
I don't know. It was hard to tell.
yeah, some weird. Yeah, the accents are pretty thick here, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, so basically all you need to know is that some weird stuff had gone on in basically the whole area of this neighborhood, including at this kids park. And then they cut back to Sarah. Wait, I forgot. He also interviews a medium who really doesn't come back into play. I guess basically it's just an excuse for him to walk and talk with his medium to walk back towards the studio. And again, the guy sort of explains why he's a medium and just talks about, again, the bad stuff that's like going on in the area. They cut back to Sarah, and she says a circle, like this weird circle, had formed in the carpet. Like, what? How did
It was like wet, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. How did you take that?
I was just like, this is very stupid. They were like, oh, because the doctor in the studio was like, oh, well, this is proof of paranormal activity. There's a perfect wet circle.
I was like,
and then like their debunking is like, okay, well, check to see if any water is coming down from the ceiling or the light above it. Does it smell that they have her like smell?
Yeah, that was weird. I'm like, all
It,
right, so what if, like, I don't know, let's just say, all right, so they had cats. What if the cat just pissed on the rug and she just, like, wiped it with that thing and.
but Steve, in a perfect circle, the diameter of a medium-sized pizza,
It's,
American? I don't think so.
it's also the title of some band I never listened to. But, yeah, like, I don't know. That was weird. And the thing is, like, I mean, is this like sort of like standard poltergeist activity? I mean, that's how they're playing it off. And I just mean like, in the world of ghost hunting, is like a a wet circle on the carpet. Is that actually a sign of
Maybe
something?
that's what ghosts were doing in the 90s. I don't know.
Right. Right.
Like you remember like there used to be like those silk shirts in the 90s and also like long sleeve like polo style shirts that would just have like circles on them, big circles and like other geometric shapes.
Sure. Sure. That sounds
Maybe
like.
it's just it's just of the time.
All right. Sure. We'll go with it. So now, all right, where are we? So Sarah takes a sample of the circle, as Yahel said, and then we get another call with host Mike, and then now we're cut back with Sarah. She's moving around furniture for some reason, and then the girls show up screaming about something. Sarah hears some banging, not in the glory hole. Well, probably in their glory hole, but you get what I mean.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and yeah, all right. So there's banging like it's going on throughout the entire house, and they're like trying to figure out what it is and where it's coming from. So this is when they use their panning and zooming techniques with their surveillance cameras. And like I can't remember if it was either Lynn or Mike who's like, okay, pan to the left, now a little bit to the right, now go down a little bit, and then basically they discover that it's Susie banging something against the wall, and then basically like from there, everybody thinks that it sort of flips the.
A hoax.
Yeah, flips the script, and now everyone thinks it's a hoax,
Well,
except for.
Michael Parkinson's the host. He thinks this proves it's a hoax,
Hmm.
and but the doctor is like, oh, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a hoax, you know.
Right, right.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
she's.
like her reasoning and excuses become more and more difficult to buy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, Mike and Lynn have a little argument about what they just saw, and then Sarah brings the kids back down to the kitchen. Did you notice that Sarah was constantly doing things that involved a sink for some reason? Like it's like they were
Yeah, she's like she makes
desperately.
like
Hmm.
coffee. She I don't know. She makes like two or three different things
Like
at the sink.
washes her hands at some point. It's like they were just desperate to find things for her to do, I guess.
Yeah. The
Um,
water pressure in this house is insane too. Like whenever she opens the sink, it sounds like a fire hydrant has broken.
Right, right. Well, Sarah really just enjoys sync activities, I guess. So, of course, Susie claims she didn't know what she was doing, has no idea what was going on. Mike calls them all frauds. Mom says they are telling the truth. Like, the actress who plays the mom is so. And, well, I mean, like I said, everyone commits, but, like, yeah, mom especially is just, like, so believable. Like, I think she does a great job. So well, what do you think of the mom's performance?
It's pretty decent. I mean, everybody for the most part has a pretty decent performance. I think the best performance is probably Michael Parkinson's
Hmm.
or whatever the main host. But yeah, she had a pretty solid performance.
So now they check back in with Dr. Silvestri, and he just says that, like, clearly Susie is disturbed, and then they watch a video of someone talking about another ghost story, and this is when I think we get the first instance of their equipment sort of going a little haywire because the tape ends up fast forwarding, and then they just end up cutting.
Hmm.
Then they get another caller, and she says, and this was cool because this is when it really starts to get meta, and I just really didn't see it going this way. The caller says that she can't get her kids to like look away from the basically the broadcast, and then I love what does Mike say to her?
What which part?
about her kids. Like, all right, so this lady calls in and she's really distressed. She's like,
Oh yeah, yeah. He's like telling her to like put her kids to
yeah,
bed.
she's like, well, madam, your kids should be in bed anyway. and like, and then then she's just like, well, that's just it. I can't get them to go to bed. Like they won't look away. Blah blah blah. Basically, like this is the sort of first instance that whatever's going on within like the broadcast is now seeping into the UK, if you will, or the viewers or
Right,
whatever.
right.
Um, so they watch footage of Lynn interviewing one of the little girls. Then they are back in the house, and this is when they hear the cat like meowing, and they try to go looking for it. And then they end up going up to the room and they find Susie like laying in the bed, basically catatonic with like cuts all over her, which they actually showed a picture of her prior with all of those same cuts like over her.
Yeah, they just look like scratches.
And then of course the thing is that all right, clearly Susie is hurt one way or the other, but at the same time, like Mike and other people are still calling her like a big liar and a fraud and stuff.
Yeah, he's like, couldn't she have done it to herself with her nails? And then her mom is like, with what flaming fingernails? And like
Oi, oi.
shows her fingernails. Oi!
Exactly. So then, of course, Sarah goes back to her favorite place, the bathroom, because there's a sink there, and then she thinks she feels someone like touch her or like a presence or something like that.
She thought she saw someone behind the door.
And she opens the door, and of course, no one is there. Mike gets another phone call, and this is basically someone filling in the backstory, saying that like a child killer used to live like within the area. But then he also said that he felt that he had like the ghost of a woman inside of him, and then he wore dresses and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, basically just trying to, and yeah, they really, they also say that he is basically a, child, is it murderer or molester?
I don't remember which it was, but I do remember that they said that he had like a dozen cats or something. Which I guess is why we keep hearing cat. And the cat like sounds which is just the meowing and fighting and that kind of stuff. The way that they dubbed it in to the mix is like so bad 'cause it's like on top of the mix in most of the scenes. Even like later on, I know I'm getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but when the cats are supposed to be behind the glory hole door, uh, they sound exactly like if they were like right next to the sound guy instead
Yeah.
of sounding a little muffled. That kind of stuff. Again, I don't know how anybody could think like this is real, but
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I think at that point when it starts getting real bad, uh, that maybe it's supposed to be obvious at that point that it's just part of the paranormal activity. Because before I felt like it wasn't as bad, but I mean, you're definitely right. It's too high in the mix. They needed to put a tad little bit of reverb on there.
yeah, something.
Yeah. So, all right, Mike gets in. All right, they explain the child killer, blah blah blah. Then they try to take the kids out of the house. Then we're back into the studio, and Sarah's husband is basically telling us that they're getting phone calls from everyone, basically in the UK, saying that they have like paranormal activity is just happening everywhere. And of course, good old Mike, and all of his Britishness, looks right at the camera and he's be like, please, come on. These events are like few and far between. It's very unlikely that they're happening to you, viewer, more or less. And okay, so as they're trying to take the kids out, um, the equipment starts messing up even more. And then they find Susie like crouched in a corner. Then she starts talking in her demonic voice. What did you think about the old demonic voice?
Uh, I mean, it's fine, I guess. I kind of hate the tropey demonic voice. I hate anytime it's assigned to any character, whether it's a demon, a ghost possession, a kind of evil thing. It's always this thing like
Right.
I don't know, man. Like nothing takes me out of like a horror thing more than that, I think. So in this case, like I guess it was okay because it kind of made it just like a deep whisper more than anything. But
Oh, I'm sure for 1992, I mean, this is like the tail end of like the Satanic Panic, or maybe more like towards the middle. I'm sure many people were freaked out by it. I mean, but yeah, of course, you and I, we've heard it a million times at this point
yeah,
in our horror movie watching lifespan. But yeah, I mean, for this sort of mockumentary, like if they if they wanted to actually, scare people back then, I'm sure it did its job. But let's see. All right, so they lose Kimmy, the younger one. Sarah starts looking for her. She finds Kim's bunny again. It's in the sink. It's like Sarah. We're just gonna have you interacting with the sink through the entire film. She's like, great. I love sinks. Um, but so then they start hearing the cat again, and like the sound guy is using his boom to try to find where the sound is coming from, and it leads to the British glory hole. Um,
of
so
course.
so then they start opening the door, and they open it, and then the sound guy faints, and then one of the girls is heard screaming for her mom, and then the transmission cuts. Like classic. I love in these sort of like mockumentaries or found footage. This I'd say this usually happens where the equipment like goes awry or something like that.
Hmm.
And then they cut to Craig Charles, and I guess the idea is that he's like on his break, just sort of chatting it up, and then he realizes that he's live, and like at first I was like, "Hey, what was really the point of that scene?" But then, like after I watched this and did a little bit more research, I guess in the background of that scene you can see Mr. Pipes, and apparently Mr. Pipes premieres. He shows up in the background, just in random places, like at least like 11 times throughout the film.
Oh wow.
Yeah, did you? I don't even think I saw him once, to be honest.
I mean, the only time I saw like that they clearly had somebody was in the very beginning when they do have somebody behind the curtain.
Right, right. Hmm.
They like dismiss it and quote unquote debunk it, but I mean you can tell like they had somebody there.
Hmm.
That's the only time I noticed it. But I the thing that I think the reason why I didn't notice Mr. Pipes here is because I could not stop looking at the NFL jacket that
Right.
Craig's wearing. It's like this giant jacket. It's like the size of a duvet cover, which is already like weird. But
Yeah.
then it has like a giant NFL logo on the side. I'm like, was the NFL big in the UK at the time?
I mean, as someone who's lived overseas, I've never like nobody cares about American football except for like Americans and maybe Canadians. I feel like
Well, I know that now they play a few games in the UK a
do they?
year, I believe. But
I feel like maybe he was wearing it just because nobody else would at that time. Um,
just to be funny, he's just zany
yeah,
like
no,
that.
I really think that that's something he would do. You know what would have been better if it was that Charlotte Hornets jacket that everyone had in the 90s.
Oh man, yes, the teal and purple
Yeah, with the big hornet on
starter
it.
jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mwah. But so anyway, we're back inside the house, or rather, we're in the studio, and they're looking at the house, and everything looks fine. They're looking at the footage. It looks like the kids are playing games with Sarah again. Then they take another call, and it's a guy who says he was the social worker of the person who previously lived either in the house or the area, who was basically the child killer that we mentioned earlier, who
Right.
lived in the glory hole. And then Mike says no more calls. Like he and Lynn have a little, they have another argument, and then Mike says no more calls. And then Lynn realizes that the footage they were watching was fake because the clock hadn't fallen down off the wall or something.
Yeah, there was like a painting or no, it was a picture that earlier had like when I think it was right around the time that Susan, the older kid, had the demonic voice thing happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like the walls had just started shaking, and like a few photos had like fallen down. And in this quote unquote live feed, the photo is still up.
Right, right. It's basically like from Speed when Keanu Reeves changes the footage in the bus. So
Sure.
yeah, it is. It is. It's just like Speed.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So now wind starts blowing like inside the studio and everywhere, and
Yeah, that was a little weird.
I mean I like it because the stuff is starting to fly off the rails because we're basically in the third act here. And Lynn says that the broadcast has acted as basically like a massive seance, which is why the paranormal activity has basically infected like all of, the UK or whatever, which is why they were getting all those calls before.
Hmm.
And then we see footage of Mom and Kim being led into the police car. And like Mike and the people from the studio are like, well, where are Sarah and Susie? Where are Sarah and Susie? And then they cut back, and this time they're using the infrared camera. And like we spoke before that, we were just kind of, I guess, wondering what the infrared camera was going to be used for. And they just kind of show that they're in the house and in the dark, but it's never really used for a scare or anything.
No, you'd think like it was going to like show the outline of Mr. Pipes or something in
Yeah.
some manner, but nah.
They were just like, "Oh man, infrared is so hot right now. We gotta, we gotta have it in our
You know,
mockumentary."
I I wonder if because I assumed this was not shot on film, right? I
Oh
assumed this
yeah,
was shot on video.
broadcast, yeah, yeah, for sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you would know better than I would. It's hard to shoot in the dark
Mm-hmm.
um, on video
Mm-hmm.
because you can't have the same level of exposure, right? I
Right.
think is what it is.
Sure.
So I wonder if they did the infrared camera thing because it's like, well, we want to do something in the dark, but we can't really do it on video, but we could do it with an infrared camera and
Yeah.
kind of add to the creepiness. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't mind it, even though like I was disappointed that it wasn't used for like a real scare. But I'm thinking, okay, this is 1992. It's TV. You're gonna find it to be like creepy and weird and
Yeah.
unusual. So,
No, you're absolutely
so it's
right.
fine,
Like it's a thing that they didn't have to do, but it's cool that they
right?
bothered because it's like, hey, they're really taking this thing seriously because they have high-tech infrared cameras. So this has got to be real. Or something along those lines. So basically, they're trying to find Sarah and Susie, and then basically Sarah tries to free Susie from the British glory hole. She opens the door, she being Sarah, and just goes inside, and the cameraman is like, "Sarah, wait, like come back," and then the door just shuts. And then it just go cut, and then we cut to Mike back in the studio, and he is basically sitting in the dark by himself in the studio, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know if anyone else is watching this, but blah blah blah." Apparently, Mr. Pipes is here too, though I didn't see him. And he starts talking in the demon voice. We hear another cat noise. Fade to black, and then it's over. Anything to add about any of that last stuff?
Yeah. So at the end, apparently, this is supposed to be like the host, Michael Parkinson's supposed to be possessed. Did you get that from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mr. Pipes was starting to take over Mike, or whatever is going on is starting to infect him as well. That's what I.
Because it's funny because I didn't really get that that's what was supposed to be going on, and he just kind of starts like turning into like an old man that doesn't know what's going on because everybody in the studio starts leaving as
Right.
like the lights are flickering and like equipment's breaking, lights are actually like
But
exploding above them.
Mike is such a professional.
He's a pro.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah. He's
pro.
not gonna leave just because some wacky ghosts and a couple of
Yeah.
lights exploded, which that actually
And
happened.
he's like, as all this stuff is going on around him, even like the paranormal lady leaves, the doctor, he's like, oh, what? People are leaving.
Yeah.
Oh, he starts like looking around like a confused old
I
man.
wish he would have had like a blowout instead. It's like, I've been working in this town for 40 years. I'm not gonna let some ghosts, and then start talking in the voice like. But he's just so calm, cool British that not even he is going to have a blowout because he's such a professional.
Yeah, apparently, I suspect this is when his mother got freaked out.
There's also another little bit of trivia that apparently Judi Dench was watching this back in the day, and she too thought it was real until she spotted one of her acting friends like in the role, and she was like, "Ha ha, you
That's
spoiled it."
what made her realize it wasn't
Hey
real.
man, it was the '90s. Don't you dare question the intelligence of Dane Judi Dench.
Of who?
Dane Judi Dench.
Okay, I think you got it that time. Yeah. I mean, I think you covered most of the important beats pretty nicely. Yeah, it's I don't know. I guess we can get into how we
You want to render your
felt
verdict?
about it, but well, actually, before we do that, I do want to mention that apparently this show led to somebody killing themselves.
Yep, it's true.
Did you read about that?
I did indeed, yeah. I have it right here in my notes. Yeah, it said basically a real life 18-year-old teenager. He hung himself by hanging himself on something called the witch tree near his home. And he left a suicide note that basically said, "If ghosts are real, then I will be with you soon," or something along those lines. Or I will always be with you as a ghost. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And I should point out that guy that killed himself, he had the mental age of 13. Which, I mean, that's still kind of strange that a 13-year-old would. So I don't know. I suspect his mental capacity was less than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there were a couple other kids who were diagnosed with PTSD.
Yep, it said this earned the dubious honor of being the first TV program to be cited in the British Medical Journal as having caused post-traumatic stress disorder in children. Woo! Good job, Ghostwatch.
Yep. There were a bunch of complaints to the Broadcasting Standards Commission, which is like the
FCC.
British equivalent of the FCC. They did dismiss those complaints, saying that they were outside of their jurisdiction, basically. But it did go to some kind of court ruling. Anyways, long story short, the BBC ended up apologizing about it. It was never shown again on BBC TV.
Right.
But it was, replayed internationally in other markets, and you can get DVDs. And we mentioned earlier, it's available archive.org and YouTube, places to rent, that kind of stuff.
And there's a documentary that neither of us had time to watch, unfortunately. But I will also add that Stephen Volk, the writer, he found his inspiration for Ghostwatch in a real life case from the 1970s. It's referred to as the Infield Poltergeist, which I feel like that was maybe used as a title for another movie or something, or maybe it's just something I've heard of. But it said the case occurred in North London and involved psychokinetic activity allegedly witnessed by police, as well as spirit speaking through a young girl in a demonic-sounding voice. So yeah, there you go. This is based on actual facts, ladies and gentlemen. So watch out.
Oh, it's Steve. I mean, I'm sure I know the answer, but do you believe in ghosts, Steve?
No. Do you?
No, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, we're all about facts and logic here at Obscurity Now. And glory holes.
I mean, just imagine if ghosts were real. Like billions and billions of people have died over the since humanity's been around. So we'd be seeing like ghosts popping up all the time.
Right. Well, the argument I always had when someone's like, if ghosts are real, like, what are all these people, seeing? It's like, well, it's usually always in like a dark, foggy night or something when your eyes are playing tricks on you. Why can't you see a ghost like in the middle of the day, like at a beach, like where people are just hanging out and along comes a ghost? Like, it's not done. It just doesn't happen.
It's very, very strange, right? That it only happens at night. But yeah, are you ready to render your verdict?
Yeah, let me just make sure that I hit all these trivia beats. I think we did. Yeah, let's do this.
Remember, obliterated. That is the question.
All right. Agent Velasquez, do you think Ghostwatch should be remembered for all of human history or tossed into the black void of obscurity, never to be heard from again?
This is a tough one for me because I got to be honest, I found it pretty boring the first two acts, which is why I suspect I never finished it the first time I started
Right.
watching it. Uh, I think it moves really slow. There's kind of a lot of mundane,
It's
almost
filler.
like I don't know how to describe it,
Filler.
just like day in the life
Yeah.
of kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
going on. Um, so the pacing to me felt a little weird. It's like they were trying so hard to make it realistic that it was kind of boring.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um, it does get interesting when it picks up though later on, and I do appreciate the lengths that they went to with some stuff like the set design. We didn't really talk about it too much, but the set is really
It's
well
amazing.
done. It's huge. They've got like a, and we're talking about the studio set
Mm-hmm.
where the two hosts are. They've got like a section, like a two-tiered, maybe it was maybe even three-tiered section where the callers are taking calls, and you've got the guy that's like, the people that are handling the phone calls are giving him papers, and then he's
There's a
reporting to the
fake
host.
fireplace in the background just for no reason.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually gonna ask if you noticed that there was a TV for the
Yeah,
fire.
yeah, I did. I did.
I didn't notice at first, but yeah. But yeah, the set's huge. They've got like a giant video wall made up of like, like 12 CRTs. Um,
Oh, I was
yes.
just gonna say, yeah. I mean, great set. When you were not to interrupt your like flow or anything, but when you were watching, maybe in the middle part where it was getting a little boring, were you waiting for it to cut to a fake commercial? Because I wish it was, like in
Oh man,
WNUF.
I wish it would have. I wish it
Like
would
if they
have.
would have had
But
those, like it would have helped a lot.
as far as my verdict, because of the effort that they put in, I think if this was like 20 minutes shorter, it would be a lot better. But I'm gonna say remember.
Yes. Oh, I definitely agree. This actually ended up being, I would say, a pleasant surprise for me. Yes, there is a little bit dull Britishness, like at the beginning and towards the middle. If you can get past that, like it starts out like at the very beginning, it's really sort of engaging and charming, just because you're watching this sort of
Mm-hmm.
slice of time, more or less, and you're like, oh, look at the look at the cheesy graphics, and but then of course you settle in and you're like, ah, man, is this British? And but if you stick with it, I feel like you're rewarded. It went places I really didn't see it going. Like the script, I would say, is a little more clever than I even thought it needed to be. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely going to say it deserves to be remembered as well. So here we go. In accordance to Obscurity Now, the most important streaming YouTube podcast in all of the internet, you shall be remembered. Yes, good show. Good show. And also, I mean, I guess it didn't create the genre of the mockumentary or the horror mockumentary, but I mean, it obviously inspired quite a bit of like the found footage genre with
Yeah.
WNUF, Blair Witch, Paranormal Activity. Do you like those movies, found footage stuff?
Not usually. I mean, I remember watching Blair Witch in theaters.
So boring,
Um,
more boring than this.
yeah, I thought it was yeah, I thought it was pretty
Mm-hmm.
boring. But so I mean, I've seen a few of found footage things that are like well done.
Mm-hmm.
I think Europa Report was kind of a found footage movie
Mm-hmm.
that I liked, but yeah, I for the most part I don't. What about you?
I used to really be into the genre. I would try to watch as many as I could, and yeah, just like with any genre, there's ones that are done well and ones that aren't. I don't know if you ever saw like Grave Encounters or Grave Encounters
Oh
Two.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like Grave
Yeah,
Encounters.
that
Yeah.
one's really good because I think they sort of looked at the genre and they were like, oh, let's put a bunch of cool stuff that other people didn't in our movie.
Yeah, and it's very like much like taking the piss out of those ghost hunting shows,
Yes. Oh,
and it
absolutely.
does that really well. But I think that movie works because the scares that they do, they're not like necessarily trying to like jump scare you where there's a sudden pang
Right.
sound, sound effect. It's like real creepy kind of stuff that builds and builds and builds instead.
Well, speaking of
Which I prefer that in my horror movies in general
sure,
anyway.
absolutely. Speaking of horror movies, before I watched this last night, I watched Insidious: The Red Door. Before I briefly tell you about it, did you watch any of the Insidious movies?
I think I've watched all of them except for that's like the latest one, right?
Yes, and I would say Insidious is at least the first two are pretty good, but man, this new one is not, and I it wasn't even scary. Like I was pretty disappointed. This was
Really?
actually this was better than that. What did you say you saw something recently?
Oh, recently, yeah. I watched the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey
Mm-hmm.
movie. If anybody wants to see it, it's on Peacock. I don't recommend it.
No good.
Nah, it starts off pretty good.
Mm.
Like they had this animated thing explaining how Winnie the Pooh and like Piglet ate Eeyore,
Oh
basically.
God.
Uh, but yeah, it's just like the characters are like paper thin, even thinner than you would expect for this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's I know it only had $100,000 budget, but it's just not good. It's very boring. There are like two or three interesting kills,
Mm.
but there's a lot more real boring kills. Like I think like half the kills are just slapping somebody to
Or
death.
strangling them.
Uh, no, just slapping them.
Yeah.
Piglet does a strangle. Like Tigger isn't in it, but I guess he doesn't enter the public domain till this
Oh,
year, so that's why
nice.
he's not in it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're doing a sequel. But yeah, it's pretty bad. I do not recommend it. I was bored and annoyed.
Well, well, you heard it here first, folks. And how was your Halloween Horror Nights experience?
It was pretty good. We were fortunate enough to like have the fast passes,
Mm-hmm.
so we did get to see all the houses. Um, I'm just like not a person that like really gets scared by the at houses.
Sure.
I wish I did because like that's like the fun of it,
Right.
but I don't know. I guess because I'm expecting it, so I don't usually get
Sure.
startled. Um, but I will say that like the best houses, in my opinion, were the ones that did not have a license attached to them.
I always feel that way.
Um, like the Last of Us was probably the worst one, just because the most of the people that were scaring you were humans.
Hmm.
They just looked like dirty humans that hadn't showered in a week or
Oh
something.
no, the homeless.
Uh, and they only had a few people dressed up as like the kind of zombie creatures, like the infected creatures from the game and all the show, also, and the costumes were pretty bad.
Mhm.
So that wasn't good at all. But there were a few like that had like really cool like set designs, like as far as like the design of the haunted house. But eh. Oh, we did go on the Harry Potter ride, which is pretty
Oh, was
good.
that your first time on it?
No, it wasn't my
Oh,
first time on it, but
yeah, yeah.
that ride's
It's a
always
great
pretty good.
ride. Yeah, for sure.
I'm not like a Harry Potter fan, but I mean the Diagon Alley thing is done
Oh
really,
yeah.
really well. Like it's cool.
Mhm. Well, I do have one last question regarding Ghostwatch. If would you wear a Ghostwatch T-shirt like they were wearing in the
Oh yeah, we forgot to talk about that. Yeah, like the TV, Sarah, the reporter on the scene, she has a
all the crew?
Ghost Watch
Hmm.
shirt. The crew, not just the crew in the studio, but also the crew in the on the field. There's Ghost Watch like signs and logos all over the studio in different areas. I definitely would.
Yeah.
It's not like a out of this world logo, but it's pretty cool.
It'd just be an interesting one to wear to see if anyone actually got it. And
Yeah,
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 the one weird thing
exactly.
about the logo is because I'm looking at it, I'm like, how can I recreate that? Like, what fonts are being used? And it's weird because the ghosts and the watch are only slightly different from one another. It's like they increased the like the boldness of the watch
Hmm.
compared to the ghosts. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking too hard about it, is what I'm doing. But
Maybe thinking a little bit harder than they did, but
they're like, hey, oh, no, oi, we need a logo. It's like, oh, well, here's two fonts.
yeah,
Bam, we're done.
yeah. So I would say this is mostly a pleasant surprise. I would say if you're gonna watch this, just go in understanding that it's a little slow the first couple acts.
Mm,
It's a lot of I guess world building you would call it, I
sure,
guess.
sure.
But it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, Oh, 100%. Well, unless there's anything else, I think that's our show. I will mention that by the time you are listening to this, the Escape to Earth Issue 3 Kickstarter should be live, and there should be a link in the description. So if you want to support the work we do here at Red Letter Media and support new IP, then please click away and go on over to the Kickstarter and give till it hurts. Yeah. Other than that, I guess we will. Did you have anything else to add before we sign off here?
No, I am good.
All right. Well, we will see you next Sunday as we continue to unearth more obscure media only on Obscurity Now. Happy Halloween.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.